Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of the Dogs of War Gaming podcast. I'm Angelo. We've got
Jesus
and Tree
with us today, and this is episode 2. We're excited to be here. It means episode 1 did well, so we're doing another one.
Oh, we're stubborn.
As always, we are recording out of the wonderful Dogs of War Gaming building down here in Palm Bay, Florida. It's a beautiful Sunday morning, and the weather has finally decided
It's cold. It's 74 degrees.
Not sweat us to death. So
cold at 74 degrees. Floridian you.
Yes. So we're going to jump into some news and events. This is going to be the first probably segment in each one of the episodes we do from now on, since the last one was kind of our introductory episode. So great news, 270 viewers and listeners for the first episode in the first week and a half it's been up. So
not bad.
And that's consistent downloads too for the audio cast across multiple weeks. So awesome. We had a big surge on the first day like you would expect, and then even if you log in and take a look at the stats right now, there's still consistent downloads every day going on.
So to those of you listening and those of you watching,
thank you.
Especially because you're watching episode 2 as well.
Yes. So
if you're not watching, we know who you are.
If you like the cast, make sure you share it with your friends and stuff like that. Publish it around the internet if we missed a place to put it up on. We didn't get it up on Card Game DB because of some posting issues we had with the account. So those viewer numbers I expect to go up, hopefully, episode 2 once we get up on Card Game DB as well.
It'll show nice growth.
It will. So what's coming up this week? So what's been going on? So Conquest has launched.
Conquest is finally here.
Yes. After significant delays, we finally have the core sets in our hands. Apparently, according to Jesus' distributors, it's been the top sellout game at FFG that they've launched recently. Not
a big surprise.
Yeah. To the point where distributors apparently didn't even get all the orders that they placed with FFG in, so it's made things interesting. I got my 3 core sets, so I've
got my
happy.
3.
Now I got my 3.
There you go. You got what, 30 in the first shipment, and we've sold every single one of them, I think.
And then another 30 coming in later.
Yeah, so I mean that's really good news, and even here in the shop, we only had some people that just wanted to dabble in it, so they only picked up a box or 2 maybe. So that means as soon as they get hooked like the rest of us have, I think you'll end up selling out for the rest of them too.
And I think that's a great statement about the game is that you have a lot of people who have never played an LCG before who, either because of the fact that it is a brand new game and they're getting in on the ground floor, or the fact that it's Warhammer 40K, which is a huge IP, are starting to take that baby step or that dip the toe into the LCG pool, and at some point we'll just push them into the deep end.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got to play some games the other day. I've played some games prior to launch, obviously, but we sat down and played 5 or 6 games here in the shop yesterday, and if I had to give it a kind of a description of where it fits in with the rest of the LCG games out there that we're playing right now, it's not as complex as Netrunner is. So there's more strategy in Netrunner, in my opinion, than there is in Conquest, which is fine. But it has more depth, in my opinion, on a strategy level than a game like Star Wars or AGOT does.
All right.
So, if I were to kind of give it a strategy level, it's kind of mixed into there. It does have some weird rules quirks, which I was maybe a little disappointed to see, after all the LCGs that have come out, we're still finding these weird rule interactions that maybe FFG needs to focus a little bit more on cleaning up, hopefully, in the future.
Now, I'll actually say that I disagree with that. I'm sure there are some. I haven't actually played the game yet. I bought my stuff and I organized it, but I haven't played or even built a deck yet because I've been doing other stuff. But even just in helping people, it's funny, as someone who's never played the game, I was answering all kinds of rules questions over the past 2 days.
Because we know you read the rules.
Yeah. And it's just interesting things about, I believe it was one of the games you had, Jesus, where we were talking about the difference between when damage is dealt versus when it's assigned and stuff. And it looked, from an initial look, it looked like it's like, oh, Fantasy Flight did it again. They're using different words for the same thing. And when we actually dug into it, found out that they have they've actually cleaned up the wording a lot. To the point that dealing damage is a process that involves assigning damage and checking the amount of damage and things like that.
And that part's great. But an example I hit on that I found out after playing yesterday, I was misplaying, for example, is Commander Shadowsun from the Tau. His ability, when you commit him to a planet, allows you to put an attachment of cost 3 or less, or his elite cadre that come with his set into play from your discard pile of your hand at the planet he's committed to. Now, interestingly enough, you read that ability and you think this makes sense, right? He's bringing in his attachments, he's recurring them, he's putting them into play to, provide an edge against your opponent that they weren't expecting. Apparently, some of the cards, because I just missed the wording to assume, again, that this is how it was meant to be played, have gone back to the old AGOT kind of style of the difference between played and put into play.
That's actually a big difference that I believe is intentional in most of their games.
It could be. It's just I was kind of hoping we were going to get away from some of those weird kind of confusing wording on cards and maybe come up with a different way of saying this card's not eligible for this kind of style action instead, other than that really weird wording.
That wording's been on in a lot of card games.
Yeah,
it's one of those things. I think as all three of us are now basically veteran card gamers. For lack of a better way to describe it, that's one of those things you really need to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting to see the cards they then end up choosing for the what can you use his ability with, and not like, for example, I was ambushing in, essentially it's basically kind of an ambush mechanic.
Right.
The gun drones for Tau, which give a dude AoE 2, apparently you can't. They're specifically worded in such a way that you can't put them into play using his ability and attach them to a character.
So it's only when they're played from your hand that you get to attach them to a character.
Okay.
Per the wording of how the rules interact, it's a little interesting there.
That's a good way to balance that ability, because otherwise handing out AoE 2 in every single encounter would be pretty strong.
And the other example, too, and if you're listening to the cast, you may have been confused by this like I ended up being, and we talked about this on one of our unboxing reviews that I've just since realized is the wrong way to read the rule set. There are two specific action type cards in the game. There's a deploy action and a combat action, right? So in confusing fashion, they have ruled that if you use a deploy action during your deploy phase in the game, it takes up your action for your deploy step. You get no other action. That's your step.
So it then goes back to your opponent.
It goes to your opponent. Apparently, logic would say that combat actions do the same thing. Apparently, they do not.
No,
we have action windows.
We don't try to apply logic to cards.
But it's a confusing kind of way to format the cards, right? So you template the cards in such a way that says anything that has a phase name and then the word action, if it's going to work one way in one phase, why would it not work the same way in the next phase?
Yeah, you have sense.
And it doesn't. And that was really confusing to me because it should. I mean, thought process would say this is how FFG is teaching you to play the game. And they say if you use a card in the deploy phase that says deploy action, it takes up your action step. Why would you just not equate the same thing in the combat phase? Apparently it doesn't work that way.
But the same thing is events. So if I play burn spell from chaos during my deploy phase, it does take my action that turn. You play cards.
Yeah.
But I could do that in the combat phase with no problem.
True. So it was interesting. It was kind of a weird gotcha
one
there
more
for
thing
me.
to say on that. I've been saying it for weeks.
Yes.
It was just being right.
It was just weird. I mean, it was just a weird rules interaction that I thought was kind of strange,
But I see the confusion could have come easily.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So apparently what it actually means is if you look at the flowcharts in the back, there are very specific phases, obviously, that you can fire combat actions in. So whereas the other action cards can be used whenever, these actually have so. Yeah. But anyways, the rules are definitely tighter than a lot of the other games have been. I still think Netrunners are the tightest, but we'll see how things continue. But I love the game. I think it's fantastic. The flavor's great. 3 core sets are definitely needed. A lot of people are talking, do you only need 2? Can you get away with 2? I think if you really want to play the game, you're going to need 3. So if you're looking to get in, try to find a distributor that still has some, or a game shop. If you're local, come down to Dogs. Jesus has more coming in on Monday, Tuesday. So are we going to set up a league night for Conquest, by the way?
Yes.
It's
now
going to be on Blurns Day because we're out of all regular days.
Yeah, it's going to be Thursday. I guess just stack it up with Thursday and see how it is. If it grows big, then we can maybe give it its own day.
Yep.
I'm always afraid of one LCG shattering over the others.
Yeah.
And I want Thursdays to have all type of LCGs. So.
I think I'll do what I normally do and just bring them with me any days when I come up to the shop. And, I know that a lot of the guys who are playing Netrunner here are buying into it too. So, maybe Tuesday turns into half Netrunner night, half Conquest night for some of us. So, all right. So, Conquest has come out. That's fantastic. Let's talk about Crucible real quick. So, Crucible 4 is coming up. They've announced the dates for Crucible, which is the end of February.
Those that don't know, Crucible is a fairly large scale war machine and hordes, Warhammer 40k, Warhammer Fantasy, Bolt Action, and this year LCG tournament convention that goes on in Orlando, run by 2 of our local press gangers. On the War Machine side, and I believe several of the equivalents for the other games, and our own Jesus running LCGs and X-Wing.
Yeah, you're gonna run X-Wing too, right? So the way Crucible works for the non-LCG and X-Wing style stuff is they do what's called Carnage qualifiers, and there's 4 of them for War Machine this year. And the first one's already happened. It was out in Tampa last weekend, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later on in the episode with my experience being out there. But upcoming, we have one on October 25th up in Marietta, Georgia at Gigabytes Cafe. I know The Orlando guys are talking about going. They're not sure yet. Apparently, every time they go up to Georgia to play, they get their butts handed to them. So they're not.
They should welcome that experience.
They should. So they haven't decided. I don't think yet if they're going to go or not. Given the fact that Mayhew came so close to winning Tampa, he probably might want to go up and get another crack at it. After that, we have the November 15th qualifier here at Dogs of War Gaming. I think that date's a little in flux, though. I thought we were talking about maybe trying to shift it around a little bit.
I don't think they're going to shift it. I don't know. What they say.
Craig said he was going to look into it. He had to talk to some people and make sure they hadn't already made plans.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Currently, it's scheduled for November 15th. If the schedule changes, Craig will be announcing that on all of the appropriate places.
And that's the week after War Machine weekend, too. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And
see if the meta shakes up from what wins War Machine weekend.
Yep. And then the final one will be at Mini Duels in Orlando, Florida, and that will be in January. I left the date off my little sheet here, but I believe it's like the second weekend in January or something like that.
So the last qualifier.
Yeah, so that'll be the last qualifier before you actually have to qualify at the event. So, if you're in the Florida area or you're planning on coming to Crucible and you want to try and qualify early, you can find all those dates on the Crucible Orlando website. We'll give a link to it in the description of the podcast. So after that, the Carnage qualifiers, we've got the very first Netrunner World Championship card has been released.
Yeah, this was actually shown a while ago as like in an ad, but this is the first time
teeny tiny.
It was hard to read. They actually Fantasy Flight has a full-on article on their website talking with the designer of the card.
Yep.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, so
you want to read it for the
the card is called Architect. It is a piece of ice, so an interesting choice for the very first World Championship card. We get a piece of ice.
He actually talks about that. He says it was the most open design space for a card.
It makes sense.
Sure.
This is a 4-cost Sentry. It's 3 strength. It says, Architect cannot be trashed while installed. It's got 2 subroutines. The Corp looks at the top 5 cards of R&D and may install one of those cards, ignoring all install costs. And then the Corp may install a card from Archives or HQ, paying all costs. And this was designed by the 2012 World Champion Jeremy Zwine. I can't.
Yeah. He
sounds like a German last name. So
he wins a lot of tournaments.
And it's a Hasbioroid piece.
That
of
is an
ice.
HB piece of ice. It's 2 influence.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's a piece of ice that is not stopping the runner, but it's great if they're running R&D because you get to look at R&D. It doesn't say what you do with the other cards. I assume they go back on top in the same order.
It's actually a good point.
It's one of those things that seems like that's something they might have stated outright as to, because it doesn't sound like you. It definitely doesn't sound like you shuffle because they always specifically say when you're supposed to shuffle.
So that'd be my assumption. You look at the top 5 cards, pick one, install it, and put the rest back on top of your deck.
And it's a May, so you look at the top 5, then you decide. So if you see that card number 1 is an installable card and card number 2 is an agenda, you don't install anything. You let them hit card 1 and.
So you can't put it in any order back. It'll be in the same order.
It looks like they go back in the same order.
So unfortunately, since this has already been sent to the printer, since we've already seen the printed card, I bet you we'll get an errata in the FAQ document at some point that says what you do with those other cards.
It's not even an errata. That's just a clarification.
Yeah. And then the second subroutine, is again really cool. You can install a card from Archives or HQ just by paying the cost.
I think this fits huge into the idea behind the HB asset economy and things like that.
What a lot of people have been talking about doing is, say they make a run on a remote that has an agenda installed, they hit this, it fires, you install an asset which trashes the agenda, you fire the second subroutine and install the agenda now in a new remote, and if they're running on their last click, they can't run it, then you can just triple advance and score at the next turn.
That would be a pretty slick...
That's an elite play right there.
The question becomes, though, and a lot of people were talking about this, and we'll review the card more in depth when the pack comes out, but... how many times are you really going to get this to fire before the runner just breaks it? I mean, you'll get the surprise res, hopefully, and then after that...
Well, and all the popular Sentry Breakers break it, so a lot of runners won't run without a Sentry Breaker, but I don't know if this is worth spending a ferry on when there could be a Roto turret sitting behind it. The biggest thing I found interesting is that Architect cannot be trashed while installed.
Yep, that means you can't do it either.
Parasite can't get rid of it, and neither can the runner, neither can the Corp.
Yep.
So once that is put down, even if it's not flipped up,
you're never moving it.
It's there for the rest of the game. So install it well. Pick a good place to put it.
The other question is too, and I got to ask: is that his face?
Yes.
Because FFG is notorious for putting the people's faces on cards and they let them do it. So.
I would met the guys. I met him.
He looks just like that, purple and all.
No, not purple. But I met him over in Call Cthulhu. I was talking to David. He's one of the...
Posted Debo Aaron on So it's Dave Bowen.
Yeah, he's a pretty good friend. He came down for our regionals of Cthulhu, and he's a great guy. So he introduced me to him, and yes, he looks like him.
Yeah, that's
Except for the color, but that his resemblance, you could
Well,
see
it's
it.
great they're carrying on the tradition then
Yeah.
of putting the
Yeah,
winners'
he's the one
faces
that
in
won
cards.
the Conquest.
Oh, okay. So that means he was a playtester for Conquest, as I
Yes.
heard the guy who won Conquest was a playtester.
Yeah, he did. He has won several Warhammer invasions, Call of Cthulhu's. He doesn't play AGOT or Star Wars.
Any idea what his form name is? I'm curious now.
That I don't know.
Huh. All right.
But is this the first way for Corp to install something out of turn?
Yes,
I
that
believe
I'm
so.
aware of. Except for because even Foundry just puts it into your hand. So yeah.
This is the first time the Corp can do something on a player's on the runner's turn, which is
well, can install something. But
yeah. But the install can affect the whole
Yeah.
game. It's a new breaking ground of the current way of design space.
I can see some interesting jank with this too. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
like some fun cards. Like you can't jack out of the run, and I'm gonna face plant you into edge of
Yeah.
world or something like that.
I had to install my snare for the third time you run this server. Yeah, from the discard pile again and again and again.
Yep. So hey, great card. Good world championship card.
I think so. I think it's kind of outside of the box from a lot of the things they've normally developed. So I think that's what you end up seeing a lot out of world champion cards is things that are like probably maybe not something that Fantasy Flight would think of as being like good for the meta or like to be added to the game. But I think it's just definitely something just a little different.
Yeah.
And one thing which was amazing is I seen an interview with Bruno when he designs a card. And he described how his intention was and how it went back and forth. I think FFG, if you're listening, I doubt it, but if you could post an article on that, I think that would be such a
The
cool
card
read.
design process.
Yeah.
How it originally started and how it just went back and forth.
Oh, they used to do those for just posting. What was I reading? Justin Gibbs, who's one of the developers on Malifaux, had posted a beginning of beta testing, end of beta testing cards for some of the models, and did some very brief discussion about like some of the changes they made on his blog, and it's very interesting just to see like. He described at one point that they have when they have a model that has too many abilities and they need to like bring it down to balance. They actually they write down all of the abilities on little slips of paper and put them all in a hat, and they will pull like 3 abilities out of the hat and put them down as that character's abilities and play it for 5 to 10 games. Just trying to figure out where there's a good balance in having some of the abilities, and you take the rest of them and make them into upgrade cards.
And that's interesting because I can understand a lot of times why game developers specifically don't want to release their design process because it opens it up to a lot of questioning and critique by the gaming community.
Absolutely.
Like, in War Machine, for example, you constantly see people on the forums begging for Privateer Press to give insight onto how a model made it out of design, testing, and implementation the way it did. Because we have to assume that most of these companies use some form of templating when they design stuff, because otherwise it would take too much time to redesign everything from scratch. So, in theory, in like a card game, everything on a card I would imagine if I was a developer, I'd probably assign like a point weight to. And a card can only have 10 points worth of weight before it's finished. So each ability that's on that card, based upon what that ability does, has a point value assigned to it. And so you stack up those point values until you hit your point cap, and that's the card as designed.
You have positives, pluses, and minuses.
Exactly. So as a design example. But I can see why game companies don't want to release that information, though, because then you really have to stop and ask, well, why did you let this get out the way it did versus this thing over here that looks severely overpowered compared to this that doesn't? So it's kind of an interesting back and forth that you kind of see there, too.
We did see some of that between War Machine Mark 1 and Mark 2.
Yeah,
the beta testing,
you saw the card, and people played test, put their feedback, and they changed and adjusted. You have nerd rage,
Morgul too.
So
I miss old Morgul too.
But I think me, as a gamer, that process just intrigues me so much, and I'm curious to see how it works.
Or on the flip side, they don't want to tell you how little playtesting may go into something too. I mean, it could very well be, hey, we just don't have enough time to playtest everything.
Yep.
So,
but they'll never tell you that.
Of course not. Of course not.
Everything is properly playtested.
So, in other news, FFG has beaten the community with a giant banhammer recently when it comes to Netrunner stuff.
I wonder what Angela's opinion on this might be.
We wanted to talk about this because it's not only FFG that kind of has this kind of style of interacting with the community. Sometimes there's been other game companies that have done it too. It's just FFG's been the most recent one. And for those of you that maybe don't know what we're talking about, recently FFG sent out a stream of cease and desist letters to some website operators that were operating deck builders for Netrunner.
I think it was I think the main culprit here was not so much the deck builder, but it was Jinteki.net that was letting people
play online,
fully play their game online free of cost.
So the thing is though is that they shut down Jinteki, obviously, and I don't really think anybody can argue against that. I think it was the right move. I wish the Jinteki.net developer had actually gone to FFG and maybe tried to work with them to release it, because it was a fantastic concept. I thought it was really cool. Like, being able to play in a web browser would be a fantastic idea. But the side effect of that was that site was also using an API that was publicly exposed and accessible from Netrunner DB to pull all card text and images. And because of that, they sent a cease and desist letter to Netrunner DB. But they went past that too. They actually shut down a couple other sites after the fact as well that had nothing to do with this whole debacle. They just sent them all.
The problem there is they've got to set that bar now, because
yes, they do.
If they just shut down Jinteki.net and Netrunner DB, all of a sudden you're going to have hasbioroid.org show up running the exact same thing, pulling data from Meteor or from other websites.
So it begs the question, you know, how far does a company need to go to protect their IP and at the same time give the community access to the tools that the community wants to have access to? And a lot of people blame this, it seems like, on the fact that FFG bought Card Game DB last year. But the interesting thing about that is, if you look at least from what Darkspane says, and Darkspane's a really great guy. I don't know if you've ever read a lot of his posts on Card Game DB or the other forums, but he's very open about how Card Game DB operates. And he's even said that FFG's involvement with him and developing the website is pretty much limited to them actually updating the card content. And that's it. Like, they leave him free reign to develop the site however he wants after that. And he does incorporate a lot of feedback that comes from the community on especially like the deck builders and stuff. But it was interesting because the biggest complaint I saw out of the community back at FFG was, we don't want to use Card Game DB because it sucks. And it sucks because it's not Netrunner DB. It's not because it sucks because it's a bad site, but it sucks because it's not Netrunner DB, which I wanted to use. And I thought that was interesting. And so then people started going after Darksbane and saying, well, you need to make all these changes to the deck builder on Card Game DB so it's even usable. And I don't know if you've ever used it, but I thought it was great. It works fantastic on my iPad even, which I can truly appreciate.
Yeah, that actually, I was using it earlier this week on my iPad, you know, being lazy, sitting in my easy chair, building a Call of Cthulhu deck, using the new Sleeper Below set. Expansion. And I was kind of surprised that the day the set came out, everything was actually updated on Netrunner or on Card Game DB, and the deck builder worked fine, even on a mobile device.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think as a community, and the thing that annoyed me the most, I would say, was for about a week and a half after this happened, it was all the forums were filled with. Like, there was no more, let's talk about Netrunner the game, let's talk about deck strip building, let's talk about strategy. It was, oh my god, FFG is a horrible company, I'm no longer going to play Netrunner.
Yeah, it was all over Board Game Geek.
I really feel like that's a horrible approach to take, because it's good to say that you're not okay with what they did. I get that, that's fine. Do we need 1,000 threads about it? No, we don't. And even worse, are you really going to stop playing a game that's really well designed and is really fun because they said you have to use this other deck builder that may be on a site we own? At least the tool's still there and it's usable. It might not be the tool you were using, but it's there and it can be used.
Another example of when this happened, I believe it was a few years back, Jesus, you may remember this. Games Workshop decided that they were no longer going to allow community posting, like, period.
That's when they shut down their forums.
They shut down their own forums due to a lot of negative feedback there. And basically, they pulled the ability for other forums to post anything news-related about their game. They sent cease and desist to, I believe it was Bell of Lost Souls, Daka Daka, and a bunch of the other big, like, community websites for the Games Workshop games. And I don't know actually what the outcome of that was, but I just remember it being one of those things. It just looked like they were being big jerks, because they didn't provide an alternative.
Yeah.
Like, they don't post news on their website except for new releases. They don't post, they don't have a forums for people to talk back to them or to make postings to. They just decided they didn't want to have a net presence, basically, except for their online store.
Yeah.
And the thing, I disagree with Angela's perspective of, I'm making a good game. Just because a company does something good but something does something bad doesn't mean you still have to follow them. You know, if I have, and this is very different out of the window, but have a company that donates money to a charity but goes around and kills people on the other side is, oh, they're good. I'm still giving them money. They donated. No, they're doing something bad also.
But
if your personal stand is, I know I love their game, but I'm taking this stand, I applaud them. That's a stand you take as a choice.
But I can see the standpoint of, I'm shutting down all internet-facing communications. I don't want you talking badly about my company. That's bad. I mean, we should, as consumers, be able to critique your business because we're the ones giving you our money. But when it comes to just straight up protecting IP, which is what they've done, I find it hard to really fault them for that. Like, could they maybe have gone about it a better way? Sure, why not? But at the end of the day, it's not like they're saying, we don't want to hear your feedback on our game. We just don't want you taking our hard-earned and hard-produced content and using it for free without having to give us any compensating us for our costs, you know? And of course, everybody makes the argument Octagon exists, which it does. But from what I understand, DB0, who maintains the Netrunner plugin for Octagon, has a very strict agreement with FFG about what he's allowed to do, when he's allowed to push content. It's why you have to play with censored card images and stuff like that for 6 months, because there is an agreement in place. And the guy who ran NetMetterDB even said for a fact that he and the guy who ran Jinteki.net, for example, never actually approached FFG for permission to build the sites. Where Darksbane, when he built CardGameDB 4 years ago, did. Before he even released the site, he went to them and got permission to put the content there.
Yeah, well,
and it makes me wonder if that wouldn't have been the difference in this whole situation if they had just asked for permission to do it instead, you know?
My guess is they probably would have been told no, just because CardGameDB already exists, and I think Fantasy Flight wants to push traffic through that site rather than because it's their own, they own it.
But as a guy who's in the community, I'm actually kind of okay with it in the sense that it's going to collapse the community down to using a smaller subsection of sites, which means everybody gets more condensed, which means knowledge should be able to flow better between people. I don't have to check 5 different sites every day to look at stuff and things like that.
That's actually one of the things that drives me a little crazy about the Fantasy Flight LCG community as a whole. If you want to talk about Game of Thrones, you go to CardGameDB and you go to AGOT cards.
Yep.
If you want to talk about Netrunner, you go to get Board Game Geek because one person posts once every 2 weeks on CardGameDB's thing.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about Conquest, it splits equally between CardGameDB and Board Game Geek. Call of Cthulhu, there's like a fan site that is a big one, and also some CardGameDB. So you're flipping through 5-6 different websites trying to check for news and for other things.
And I don't know. I guess is my paranoia of me, but do you really want? I'm going to put again another of my examples. The government controlling the media,
but they're not.
It's their fan site, so they control whatever gets put on.
But they don't do any controlling. That's
but
the
they
thing.
can.
But they can.
They could choose to in the future.
Exactly.
Yes. And that's again, that's a different problem, though, right? That is not the problem of protecting IP. That is them now doing what Games Workshop does, which I can definitely disagree with them doing. The moment you start saying we don't want to hear your opinion is when I stop playing your game, and I think that's a different line than you just can't use this one particular website because we feel like it was in violation of our copyright protection.
Also, interesting thing that's been pointed out is that the images Fantasy Flight's been providing to CardGameDB recently have been watermarked,
which is good.
Which I think is
Yeah, they should do.
They should absolutely be doing that.
Yes.
Yep.
And I saw a lot of YouTube fans and shutting down their things because of this.
Yeah, shutting down their
but theirs
stuff in
is
protest,
like 100% accurate. Now if they do this, they could do it to anything. So am I gonna keep producing content, not knowing what they're gonna want to do? Now every single one of us have to contact them and say, are we okay? Are we allowed to do this, Daddy? You know. But they finally gave.
The daddy
sorry. They finally came out a guideline for YouTubers and streamers and stuff like that. Yes,
I didn't know that. That's
one
cool.
of the guys I follow from Germany, he boycotted it. He says, "Look, I disagree with what's happening, but I'm pulling my channel out and I'm putting no content until they come out with a fair act use document because I want to get protected." And it's.
But I think a lot of this is maybe growing pains for them too, right? That they've gone from being a company that a lot of people probably didn't know about a few years ago to all of a sudden, they're getting exponentially larger.
How you get communities in board games? You don't.
Yeah. No, you got a Board Game Geek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you'll get the 4 dozen people who are like, I love One Night Werewolf. Do you love One Night Werewolf?
No, I don't.
I love it.
I hate it. It's the worst game ever. That's as much as far as you go.
So it'll be something to keep an eye on.
Don't
But
you
I
ever
have
talk
to
bad about
imagine.
One Night Werewolf again.
Huh?
Don't ever talk bad about One Night Werewolf again, you monster.
But I have to imagine. Hopefully, this is as far as it ends up going.
I hope it's just done and move
Or
on.
at the best cases, we end up with an entire media use document that comes out that just covers all forms of media,
That
be
would
they
be amazing.
websites or anything else. And here's the do's and don'ts of how you're allowed to do
Yeah.
it. Because, like I said, they've already done it in one-off cases for Card Game DB and Octagon, for example. So why not just produce one major thing that says, hey, look, you want to use our content, you have to just submit this little form that says, here's who I am, what I'm using it for, and then you're done and you're registered. You're
And
fine,
I'm hoping, and people say, "Oh, this shouldn't have happened." I'm glad this happened because now it shows FFG. Hey, we
Protect
need
your
to
shit.
to make sure we have, like Angel says, this document. Let's put it up in our process to get this done in the next FAQ or something. Why not put it in the FAQ?
Yeah, it could be done.
You know, it could easily
No,
be put in.
I think the FAQ, like they want to keep the
page.
FAQ pure
For the
to
game itself.
The
Yeah.
game.
Yeah,
I think that'd
or
be
they could do like they could download
It's
it.
just a media
companies
type
like that tend to have
document,
media kits that have documentation about this, and
Yeah.
and usually have like a section of logos that you're allowed to use
Yep.
with
Yep.
permission and stuff like that. So
Sure.
that's what this should be in.
So it'll be something to just keep an eye on.
Yep.
All right, so next up, we're going to kind of move into some
Local
of our
events.
local events that are coming up. So we've got the monthly set of Dogs of War gaming tournaments that are coming up. So if you play any of the LCGs, we've got a tournament going on this month for you. October 11th, we have 40K Conquest in the morning, and then we have Netrunner in the afternoon. So that'll be a busy day for, I think, a lot of us here in the store since
A double header.
it's a big doubleheader.
Yeah, it's gonna be happening as more card games and LCGs come out. You only have 4 Saturdays a month, so they're just gonna start.
And we get a fairly decent group of people coming in from Orlando nowadays to play too. So
And for next month, I might switch Conquest with Game of Thrones since, or from Orlando, we have a lot of players that do play both of those.
Yep.
So this way they could get one trip, kill 2 birds with one stone.
And then October 12th, I'm going to kind of let Jesus touch on this more, but we have the Fellowship of the Ring event. I don't play Lord of the Rings, so
You're welcome to come.
I'm not very familiar with what
We'll
that
have
is.
decks ready for people,
Okay.
so they could come in and play. Lord of the Rings is
Cooperative.
It's a special. Okay, hands down to FFG, man, and I praise them for this all the time. Every single game of theirs is so unique.
Even down to hand size.
Yes, you look at, let's say, Magic, which is the template for all the card games. Then you look at WoW. It's like 80% Magic with some differences.
Yep.
You look at Duel Master. It's 90% Magic with 10% difference. Here you see all their games are so different. Yes, there's keywords, there's phases that is the backbone of the game, but it's very different.
The only two that are even close to me is Star Wars and Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, just because of the planets.
Well, the planets and you attack one back and forth.
Oh, true.
and
There's
There's a fair bit of that, but for the most part, everything else is.
For Lord of the Rings is a deck build. Is a deck construction game. So it's like any other card game of theirs.
Okay.
You build your deck, but instead of sitting in front of an opponent and playing a one-on-one duel, you build your deck with a group of friends of 4. I think it's 4 is the cap. 4 players, and you play against the game. The game autopilots itself. And they are hard. They're difficult. And there's normal mode and nightmare mode. The game goes, boom, you think you're good at it? Come on, build nightmare mode. Oh my god, I get stomped. Let's go back to normal mode. I wish I had some experience leveling like they
Feels like
do with
intermediate.
yeah, like Pathfinder or Shadowrun. But it's a great event. It's we're hosting 3 tables, 4 persons apiece. There is an entry fee because everybody leaves with a playmat, a promo, and I think the adventure.
This is a sanctioned FFG event, right?
Yes, this is essentially you had to apply for it and stuff like
that's
that.
cool.
So we have around 10 to 11 people signed up. Those 2 of them includes me and my wife. We could always sit out, but it's a great game. But the concept of telling people build your deck to play with other people co-op is mind blowing for them. They're like, "What? I can't stop my opponent? No, I don't want to play this game."
So if you've never bought anything for the LCG, if you've never played, what do you need to show up with?
Just show up.
Just show up. Cool.
Do we have two
Money.
to 3? Yeah, play. Yeah, the entry fee is going to be $15, and it's because I had to buy the kit, and
Yep.
the kit was very expensive. but we have 2 to 3 players that have a lot of the cards, and they're building multiple decks. And they're gonna come in for people to use, and we'll kind of do a quick crisscross. It's very easy. It's not that hard of a game.
So then on the 19th, so the following weekend, we have Star Wars X-Wing and Star Wars the LCG.
It's our Star Wars Day.
Yep. We do it every month. We always put X-Wing in the morning and then the LCG in the afternoon because we have a lot of guys that come up from Miami that play both games. And a lot of guys in the shop
from
here.
Orlando and Tampa, too,
Yeah.
actually. We've had several in the past months.
And then here locally, too, we got a couple of players that play both games as well, so it gives them a whole Star Wars Day. And then on the 25th, we have our monthly Game of Thrones tournament. So, we get quite a few players in for that. It's the end of the cycle. It's right before Worlds, so it'll be interesting to see what decks people bring. Hopefully, we'll have the FAQ before then.
I'm hoping to see a new FAQ before most of these tournaments.
Yeah,
hopefully.
so it'll be interesting to see when the FAQ comes.
And if we see a new pack by then, are they going to wait?
Thrones?
You think they're going to hold the
Thrones is
cycle?
always hit and miss, though, right? There's some times when we don't have a gap in any cycles, and other times we do. So
we've had a gap in the past. We didn't get a pack in September, did we?
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But we're in October now, so
Yeah, so maybe we'll see a pack this month.
Yeah.
So we'll
And
start,
we're end of the cycle, correct?
the cycle's over. Yeah, we're getting ready to enter the new cycle, the
going
Warden
into
cycle
a new-
now.
Yeah, so start seeing
Which you're all excited
the rise
about.
of the 4-cost character and the
And
downfall
House
of the
Aaron,
3-cost character.
Rise of House Aaron, man.
Daenerys on a dragon going down.
So that's it for the local gaming tournaments. Next up, we have some charity events that we're doing. On October 25th, we're going to be doing 24 hours of gaming here at Dogs of War. Correct?
That is specifically Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
Yeah.
Oh, the store's going to be open, so I'm assuming
other people
anybody can probably
in to
come and
other
play.
things,
But
but
yeah,
that's the charity event. As I believe you had explained, Jesus, the Wizards of the Coast is going to be making donations to a charity
Yeah.
for every store in the nation.
That's what I had
runs.
heard. I have to make sure. So
Yeah, that's the.
Okay.
So this
that's
is
the-
actually ran through Extra Life, which if you guys don't know what that is, it's a huge campaign that raises money for cancer people. So you actually go on the Extra Life website and you get your own donator ID set up. And then you can do streaming, you can do online gameplay. A lot of big Twitch streamers do it and stuff like that. Well, they'll post up, I'm going to play X game for 24 hours. Come watch me play and then donate to charity. And what'll happen is a lot of these big Twitch streamers, they get a lot of donations from people that watch the stream. And during that 24-hour period, every donation they receive ends up going to the charity instead. So it's all done through the Extra Life Foundation. They're a really, really awesome group of people. Yeah. So you can do it in any format. I mean, you could host a card game tournament and say, get your Extra Life ID and have people pay the entry fee to Extra Life instead as a charity thing. Sure. And then they just come in the store and they play card games for fun. It's supposed to get gamers into being involved in charity events.
Yeah, me and my wife were talking about this 24 hours last night, and there's a couple of ideas I want to do. And after the podcast, I'll talk to more in detail with people. But one of a couple of ideas is say, roll a one, donated, you have to pay $1.
Yeah.
And it goes to the charity,
You go broke at that time.
But do something like we used to do with War Machine with the cans.
Oh, dude, the food.
The food drive?
Yeah, what's it
something
called?
like that,
Food
but
machine.
do it for this. Yes, Extra Life doesn't take food, but so we need monetary. But some type of event like that, pay $1 and reroll a dice or something like that. And maybe a GM can pay a quarter because they have a lot more monsters. Have them reroll a dice. Yeah. And and it'll be kind of interesting. I don't know, to put kind of a little spice in. That way, you're getting enjoyment for spending your money and donating to charity.
I think charity events in gaming are super important because,
especially coming into this time of year.
Yeah, the gamer community as a whole is usually, ironically enough, usually rather okay with spending money
We're a helpful community
and giving money to other people too, especially charity type things. I mean, if I'm going to drop $350 on a War Machine army, what's another $50 going to charity at that point? And it's funny because I've always been of the opinion you should never play games unless you can afford to play games. And you hear people come into the shop every now and then like, man, where can I get another $2 so I can buy another pack of Hero Clicks from and stuff like that. And that's the stuff that kind of worries me, But I think most adult kind of style gamers these days, they understand the fact that I should only be gaming if I can afford to game. And if you can afford to game, you can probably afford to donate a little bit of charity too. So.
And there's nothing funnier than seeing someone walk in with like 8 or 9 cases of canned goods, ready to spend a can at a time to buy rerolls playing War Machine.
Yeah, one of our local friends, Jason.
Oh man.
I don't know if it was the last one, man. He went
3 or 4 years ago.
He bought cases of can, and he would just do it for the hell of it, just to give me an excuse to donate a can.
Yeah, he went and probably spent like $50 or $60 at Walmart buying canned vegetables and other things like that by the case.
Yeah. And one of the prizes was the person who donated the most, and
Yeah.
he
won that, and
yeah.
also he spent enough cans to win the tie to basically buy the tournament as well.
So speaking of War Machine, on November 8th down in Davie, Florida, we're going to have Brawl for Boobies. This is being sponsored by their local press ganger down there, Toby. He's a great guy. This is a breast cancer awareness War Machine tournament. He sent out the invites all locally, so if you haven't seen them on Facebook, it's probably because you're not in one of the groups that he's been posting them in. I'll put a link to all the Facebook groups in the description, so you guys, if you're part of the War Machine community, maybe aren't a member,
I got an invite.
you can find out. So Brawl for Boobies is on November 8th, and it's going to be a fundraising event. There is an entry fee. I think it's $15 to get in, and then in the tournament packet, there is a very specific list of things that you will be able to buy raffle tickets to then use those tickets to do things in the game. I think each ticket's like $1 or something like that. And throughout the game, you can do things like, I know one of them is spend 7 tickets, and for 1 round, your caster gains defense equal to the number of focus or fury on your caster at that point in time. So, like, Harbinger of Venoth, 10 focus, I get plus 10 defense, you know? You get re-rolls. He was smart. He put in a counter option, so you can match the number of tickets your opponent spent to counter whatever it is they're buying.
And I'm sure tickets are available for purchase all throughout the event.
Throughout the event.
Pause my clock here to go buy more tickets.
You can add time to your clock, actually. He had that in there. If you bring a female warcaster, you get 5 tickets for free. If you paint her pink, you get another 7, I think,
Always
on top
like it
of
when
that.
they
If you're a female player, you get bonus.
Yeah. So it's a really cool event. I think he's capped it at 32 players, though. So if you haven't already registered to go, make sure you do so. I know I'm going. Craig's going. We're trying to get some more local people from up here to go down. So.
I would be going, but I think I'll be in Minnesota that weekend.
Yeah, I think that's the same
winning
FFG
4 or
Worlds
5
weekend.
world championships from Fantasy Flight.
Hopefully.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's that weekend.
Yeah.
And,
So I'm assuming you're not going.
No, I'm not going to Worlds.
Okay.
I can't swing it with the wedding coming up and everything else. So
Congratulations, you win.
we're doing it in December. So we've been engaged for over a year now. But we have the kids, and now it's time to get married. We were going to do it before the kid, but she didn't want to ruin her wedding dress and not fit in it. So
Typical women problems.
so speaking of charity events, I think next year I've been talking with Craig and a little bit with Jesus about this. I think I'm going to host one here at a Dogs of War Gaming next year. Brevard County specifically has a homeless veteran support program, and being an ex-military guy myself, I feel like that's something, within the War Machine community or even in the card game community, it'd be great to have kind of almost the same style of like a 24-hour gaming thing, but we host multiple tournaments in the same day because we have people that can run them easily enough throughout the shop where we could have a War Machine, all the War Machine tables set up and going, and still have card games being played at the same time, I think.
So this will be our first time ever doing this with the D&D, and if we get good feedback and people like it, I don't mind spreading them out throughout the year. A board game marathon day 24 hours.
I haven't done marathon gaming since I was in college, man.
Dude, I haven't done it in years. I'm old though.
No, my Pathfinder games end at 10 o'clock at night because otherwise the table falls asleep.
You need a lot of monsters and energy drinks. Keep on going,
So the other big news,
Until dawn.
Oh,
That's
God.
good stuff.
the 2015 Store Championships have been announced.
Yes.
They
not the stores are doing
Not
it.
the stores that are doing it, but the announcement, the fact that you could register and what the format was going to look
Oh,
like.
it
and
ended
stuff like
already.
And Dogs of War is registered for all of them, right?
Oh, yes.
that.
The
So
first day they got announced.
Damn
the
right.
time frame is actually a bit longer than it was last time. Now you have from January 1st to March 31st to run
So
all of the
3
events.
3 full months.
Instead of, I think, last time where we had like 7 weeks we had to run them all in or something. It was crazy. So Jesus can start as early as New Year's Day and go all the way through March 31st. So
Don't start on New Year's Day.
assuming we get all of them, which there's no reason why we shouldn't, because I believe
Yeah.
Store Championships are just
Yeah.
approved for everything
Yeah.
you submit
Unlike
for,
regionals,
right?
I think they were just this is the one where they want every store running everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting, with the addition of Conquest this year. We have another day worth of Store Championships we have to deal with. But I'm excited. So for AGOT, you get everything's Tyrion Lannister themed. So the playmat's Tyrion Lannister, the plaque's Tyrion Lannister, the circuit, the certificate, and the deck box is all Tyrion. It's the new one, so it's the new Tyrion from the recent cycle. And Street of Sisters, it appears, is the alt art card that you'll get as well.
Yep.
Which is
always need
fantastic.
another one of
Yeah,
those.
everybody always needs more Streets of Sisters. For Netrunner, it's Chaos Theory. Everything is Chaos Theory. It's ethnic Chaos Theory, as the polite way of saying it. They have taken the Gabe approach and they've changed the card art on her alt art card now.
Really,
so,
too?
Yeah, she's darker skinned now than she was.
She's a Latina, man.
She actually, she does look
Yeah.
Latino in it, compared to her normal art, which is white. But the weird, interesting thing is all the promo stuff minus the card is the original Chaos Theory,
Yeah.
And then her alt guard card is the darker skinned version. So
with a virtual Dinosaurus doing a romp through virtual Tokyo or whatever, which is
That's
that's
cool.
kind of cool.
So, maybe this is a thing we're seeing from FFG now, and with Netrunner specifically, where the alt art promo cards for characters are just going to be different. Like, everybody gave the Gabe one a hard time because the arm was the wrong arm or
And
whatever.
it looks like
but-
Adam Sandler.
Yeah, so Star Wars is Obi-Wan. I don't know which version of Obi-Wan. It's just he's got the hood on and
I believe
stuff.
people
yeah.
were saying they think it's the one from the multiplayer box.
Okay. He's got his brown robes on with his hood pulled up.
He's
I know
in.
that,
Where, that's the pose that he's in the dark when they're in the Death Star.
Okay.
So not the one that's outside. I think it is. I don't remember.
That's what people were saying. They can't read you can't make out the text on it, but it looks like he had the right number of lines of text for
cool.
that. Either way, it's a fantastic piece of art. It looks
Yeah.
just like Sir Alec Guinness.
So
That's actually a playmat I want.
yeah, that'd be a great one to hang on the wall. That's what I do with them anyways. So Conquest is going to be a playmat, and all the art for all the non-card stuff is a Space Marine versus Eldar fight going on.
Is the best playmat from
I
all of them.
think it's a Blood Angel, if I had to guess. It's that red armor on.
Yeah,
So
probably, yeah.
I'm not a huge 40k lore guy, but I know the red armor is usually Blood Angels.
Yep.
And it looks like they're fighting an Eldar. And then the
Lehman
No,
Russ
that was
Battle
Chaos.
Tank.
It could have been Chaos. I think it was Chaos.
No, the
Space Marine, the red, it could be Chaos.
it had the Adeptus Astartes
It's,
emblem
it's,
on
it's,
it.
it's a
so-
Space Marine. It's
It
not,
is
it's
Space
not
Marine?
Chaos.
Okay.
And then
The Lehman Russ Battle Tank.
not the Lemon Russ battle tank, but the card is the Lehman Russ
Yes,
battle
our,
tank.
our,
you
our,
missed
cheat, our cheat sheets say Lemon Russ. Which is, I assure you, that battle tank is no lemon.
And it looks cool. It's like coming over a hill. It's got the cannon pointed at you and everything. It's a
And
fantastic.
I
piece
think
of
the
going.
Conquest is the best playmat just because it has an action pose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Obi-Wan myself.
Yeah, I like it because the action
However-
pose is the only one with action. Everybody else like,
Yeah, it's just characters kind of.
However, I will say
Yeah.
my favorite promo of the whole thing comes from X-Wing. So X-Wing has a B-Wing and A-Wing, so your Rebel Aces, boxes, and plaque and stuff. The participation prize is a Suntir Fel card, alternate art, and what they've chosen is Baron Suntir Fel standing outside of his TIE Interceptor,
Yep.
and he's standing next to about 15 to 20 kill marks
Yep.
painted on the side of that ship.
Oh, nice.
And they're all painted. They're in the appropriate shape for their
Awesome.
for whatever they are. So he's got Y-wings and X-wings.
That's really cool.
So it looks awesome.
So yeah, on top of it, so if you win the store championship series, you also get a waiver for your first round bye in the regionals,
Regionals.
which is great.
Will plow you straight into the top 8 if you're on the edge. Tyler Thompson.
Yeah, it can very much do that. Important to note, and this is apparently a difference from what I was listening to on one of the other podcasts out there from what they used to do. You actually have to physically turn their certificate in.
Yes.
They used to apparently issue little cards that you could keep the certificate and just bring the card with you.
No,
now they
you hand
require
them the card.
And
Certificate.
weirdly enough, I guess the tournament rules specifically say for the TO, once you've accepted the certificate and issued the buy, throw it in the trash can. You can't give it back to the player.
No, because then they
Yeah.
might,
It's-
an unscrupulous player, which we don't have any of those around here, and I'm sure there are none actually in the community, but they could try to use it in.
But I guess if you took a Sharpie and put date used on it or something like that, I mean, it'd be kind of
That's-
hard. But yeah, I mean, because they look cool. Like the certificates actually look
They're
really
very
nice.
nice.
But I think that's why they have the plaques too, because the plaque looks exactly like the certificate essentially.
I still have my regionals certificate from Call of Cthulhu because I didn't play at nationals.
All right, so that covers all the kind of the news and things that have been coming up and stuff like that. Most of the new releases that we've had in the last 2 weeks that have come out. I guess we did have the D&D Monster Manual, but you guys have already done a video on that and it's been posted, so I don't think there's any real reason to dig into that so much.
Was it Charisma 8 or is it -2 Charisma?
-2 charisma.
The -2 Charisma group has done a fantastic job with their D&D 5th edition reviews.
Dude, I want to make T-shirts out of that. I swear to
That'd
God.
be awesome. The Dogs of War Gaming, -2 charisma. So Mike,
Rolling with a 6.
Yep.
What have
Thank
you-
you to the poster who came up with that. It was designed to be a bad comic, and it's going to be a great marketing tool.
all right, so Mike, what have you been playing in the last couple of weeks? Tell me what's got you excited, what you've play tested maybe. It doesn't have to be card games,
let's
but
see.
video games you've been playing, for God's sake. So tell me what you're
Let's see.
gaming.
Yesterday we broke out the Skull and Shackles Pathfinder adventure card game.
That was so good.
Haven't played one of those in quite a while. We played Rise of the Rune Lords really hard when it first came out. Like we plowed through that game, at least the first couple adventures, and kind of hit a little bit of burnout on it.
Mm-hmm.
But we went through the very first adventure scenario twice yesterday because we lost the first time.
Somebody know how to shuffle.
Yeah, apparently it's my fault when I shuffle all of the decks and the henchman ends up on the bottom.
Hey,
on 90%.
All I saw was Jesus was killing hammerhead sharks every turn. So.
Yeah, Shark Island sucks. That was a lot of fun. We had a good time with that. I think that's definitely one that's going to come back out in my home group at least when we do board game nights. What else have I played? I played in the Star Trek Attack Wing tournament we had last weekend. I went 2-1, but due to not getting many bonus points, I ended up in something like 5th place.
Wow.
What were you playing?
I was playing Board Cube with some attack cancellation shenanigans. I killed the Sphere 2 games. Never killed the Cube because my opponents kept getting big shots in before I could. And one game, my opponent refused to shoot at the Sphere after he killed the Cube, and that lost that one.
And for people who didn't know, the scenario was there was a big cube in the middle, and you had to destroy it. And as soon as you destroy it, a small cube came out and it tried to escape out of the border edge, and you had to kind of destroy it.
Yes, it's one of the neat things. They did a 3-month tournament thing based on the Borg, and this was representing the beginning of the First Contact
that's cool.
movie where they end up fighting at the Earth sector, Sector 001. And 2 of the 3 scenarios were competitive or cooperative, where you can't actually shoot at your opponent. You're just trying to beat the objective, and it's kind of a nice change of pace, just to be able to not specifically attack your opponent.
Yeah, that's interesting how, and Attack Wing specifically, because, I dabbled in it for a little bit, so I know, how the tournament play kind of works, that you can win the objective and still come in 5th place, for example, because if you don't do the rest of the stuff that's involved in the mission and get those bonus points, it kind of discourages the kind of concept, I'm just going to Zerg whatever it is the main objective to win the game and ignore everything else. So, of course, it always sucks when you don't place because of it, but
it happens. No, I wasn't that concerned about it. I had a good time with the day. We had a new player who just jumped in, won fellowship prize, did really well, won 2 of his 3 games.
Tony?
Tony.
Nice.
I was very happy to see him doing well with that. He seems to be enjoying it.
But he's a veteran.
He's excellent.
Oh yeah. Well, you take an X-Wing player and hand them a board ship, and what do you mean it just moves in 4 directions?
What it means that you just throw 7 dice.
But wait, there's no asteroids on the board. This is easier.
The sheer volume of dice is mind-blowing when you jump into that game.
Anything else?
I'm trying to think.
You dabbled first 5th edition.
I did. I played my first time playing 5th edition last night.
D&D, by the way,
5th
for those
edition
of you.
D&D. Not Warhammer. That's a long time ago. I had a lot of fun. It's interesting getting back into a group of people a mixed group of people that are some I don't know. Yeah. But some I did. It was a bunch of old friends and a bunch of new people.
And remind Tree why he hates Pat.
I only hate Pat some of the time. And that was not during 5th edition. That was during the Pathfinder adventure card game. Because he started talking smack, and I looked at him and said, Pat, sometimes I forget I hate you.
So, Pat, if you're listening, -2 charisma.
Your -2 charisma was in full force on that one. That's pretty much all I've been playing. I took a week off from playing War Machine just to kind of catch a break. Oh, I went bowling.
Nice.
Bowling is a game. I hadn't done that in about 8-9 years.
I love bowling.
I had the funniest start to a game. I threw 2 gutter balls in my first frame, threw a spare in my second frame, threw a strike in the third one.
I was going to say, we need some bumpers, but apparently not.
That was just one of those things
You got warmed.
Yeah, it's warm up real quick. And most importantly, the last time I went bowling on a regular basis, I wasn't old enough to drink.
Wow.
Completely different experience, much better experience
All gaming's better when you're drinking.
Oh, yes.
Come on.
Yeah, between 4 of us, we killed 6 pitchers of Yingling, so
Nice.
That's pretty
it was a good time.
What about you, Jesus? What have you been doing?
Conquest.
Conquest. They haven't played it yet. I gave some demos, and it's been a while that I give a demo to somebody that has never played a card game. Give the demo, and they're like, "Wow!" And immediately go and buy the game.
Yep, I saw that happening yesterday while we were playing Pathfinder. I saw
it was like, and they gave the demo the left, and they came back and said, "We couldn't get this game out of our head," so they go and bought it. And they came back and cracked it open and stuff like that.
That's an awesome thing for you to see as a store owner. That's like
it's as a store owner, it's the most joyful. Not because of the profits or whatever. It's just joyful to see people's with their eyes like, oh my god, I'm so excited.
So that's interesting. It makes you wonder if Conquest, while it might not be quote unquote the best FFG game out there, if it will be the largest selling game only from the standpoint of everybody seems to find it accessible, and it is a thematic space that I think a lot of gamers in general can congregate around.
It's going to see, because me and Tree were talking about it yesterday, and again, we're going to see what's going to happen back in November when FFG announces, but so many people that came into the store that picked up their copies. It says, "Wow, I'm glad I'm buying this copy now at the entry level because I would love to play Netrunner, but I can't get into it." And Netrunner is only 2 cycles.
I did the math the other day. $260, you get everything in Netrunner right now.
And also,
know.
Netrunner, of all of the games they have, Netrunner is the game that you can get into with either just a core box or, like, the thing I would probably recommend to someone who has, like, $100, say, to spend, core box, deluxe set, and two data packs. There are I could pick out 2 data packs that are the best for someone who wants to play.
Yeah.
And there's it is 2 very specific ones. One has like 5 new agendas for the corpse, and the other was heavy on runner stuff.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, for Netrunner, you pick up Runner, pick a Corp, and start with that. Immediately start with that. And you can easily get very packs that are strong for those factions.
Especially now that they have deluxe boxes.
Yeah. So, what we're talking about is like, I wonder if this whatever they're going to do, they're going to eventually apply and make these games more accessible, because there's a lot of people that they're just afraid from the price point.
Yeah.
And we always tagged it along on Game of Thrones because it's the biggest one. But I'm seeing now the effect on a small one as Netrunner.
It almost makes you think that, and this kind of maybe get a little off topic, but why not? If an interesting approach for FFG might not be, we're going to release these 6 packs in a cycle, and there's going to be a 7th pack. But what that 7th pack actually is it's a faction pack that represents 1 or maybe 2 factions that were in that entire cycle's worth of cards. So that when the cycle's over, if a new player wants to get in and they're only playing faction A or faction B, they don't have to buy the entire cycle. They buy that 1 faction pack instead that gets them all the cards from that cycle for that faction they want to play in.
Actually, we ran into something. I think that might be troublesome, just because, like, as someone wants to get in with just 1 faction, that's cool. I have very rarely seen that happen where someone really, truly buys into 1 faction and sticks to that faction the entire time.
No, I agree. But maybe it just makes the game more accessible from a price standpoint, because maybe you just play that faction for month A because that's all you can afford, but you can't afford all 6 packs in the cycle. So
I see that's where the deluxe boxes come in. I think once you have deluxe boxes available for Conquest, you'll see people able to buy in, like, especially if the first one is Tyranids or Necrons.
I think it should be.
It's almost got to be.
So I also did cons this weekend.
you went to Huracan. Right?
Huracan is a historical miniature society, and it was busy. It was my help was not available, so it was all by myself, and it was rough. Oh my god, it was rough. That fat guy.
I saw you posted a picture of a huge Lord of the Rings thing. That looked pretty cool.
Yes. Oh my god, this guy had the Mines of Mordor. Oh no, is that the first Mines with Gandalf?
Mines of Moria. Yeah.
Mines of Moria. He had this whole table with columns. It was amazing. I'm sorry I don't know his name, but he's from a group of Tampa, and he does amazing big battles of Lord of the Rings. A couple of years ago, he had the I'm bad with these names. The ones that had the big elephants.
Oh, when they did the Siege of Gondor?
Yeah, when they attacked with the
He
giant.
had the Wall of Gondor, and they had these big mammoths, and you had guys in the front trying to stop. You had a guy I was playing Legolas, going around shooting the. It was amazing.
And this is an actual miniatures game, right? It's not
Yes.
something that's just homebrewed or whatever.
It's a miniature game. I don't know if there's the rules to make those scenarios, but the guy does these magnificent
That's
tables.
Yeah, this thing looked like it was probably like a 15 by 20 type.
Yeah, it looked
table,
fairly
if
large.
not bigger.
Yeah, there was like 7-8 people playing.
Yeah,
So
That's awesome.
It was very good. I managed to sell a ton. It was shocking because I normally take all the LCGs for this, and usually they don't sell. I took Doomtown, and it sold pretty good. There was a lot of people who says, "Oh my god, this came back," and it was surprising because normally card games don't sell.
Yeah.
It's all usually miniatures. Besides that, nothing else.
And you've been running 5th edition D&D.
Oh, yeah, I've been running
I
5th
know you've been
edition.
covering that a lot in your other stuff.
And you
Yeah.
played with us on Wednesday. So.
Yeah, I play on Wednesdays and then runs on the Expeditions, which I'm having a blast. This 5th edition is very good. So
Awesome. So for myself, I went out to the Carnage 1 qualifier last weekend out in Tampa. Rained both ways, there and back again. Not just like sprinkled rain, either like crazy torrential downpour rain. It was
For those of you who are not local to Florida, we've been having this awesome thing every day where for about an hour and a half it will feel like a hurricane.
Yep.
And then it's fine, but it leads to a great deal of flooding.
does.
Like
Somebody
flooded roads.
said-
in this time frame, if you look at it, so from like the beginning of summer to the end of summer, if you just look at the days that are encompassed in summer, this summer we've had more rain than we've had in the last 130 summers that we've had in Florida.
Say in any other summer in the
Yeah,
past
for the 130 years.
So yeah, it's been hitting us hard. Today is the first day we've heard that there's not supposed to be rain in 2 weeks. So That'll be
So
nice.
I drove up Saturday night because I didn't want to wake up early in the morning. It's about a 3-hour drive from us to Armada Games out there in Tampa. And I felt like getting up at the butt crack of dawn, driving through the rain to get out to Tampa, and then trying to play in an all-day War Machine tournament and then drive home the same night was probably a bad idea. So I travel a lot for work, so I had a lot of points saved up from hotels. So I got a free room out in Tampa, drove up Saturday night, went in on Sunday morning because it was a Sunday tournament for whatever reason. And we maxed out the tournament, 32 players.
Awesome.
They were worried they were going to have to start turning people away, but the last guy who registered made player 32 and nobody else came in, which is good. So you want to fill up the tournament. It was mostly Crix and Crix Circle and Legion were the most, and Scorn were the most represented factions there.
Interesting. You usually don't see too many scoring players at
Fist of Alok is coming with a presence right now.
that's a very strong
It has
list.
reinvigorated Scorn, it looks like. In the current meta, it seems to have a lot of good answers for what's going on right now. And so, with the prevalence of it in the tournament cycle right now, you're seeing a lot of big name people taking it to tournaments right now. I think it's becoming more popular in local metas too, at least here in Florida. So I went 2-2, unfortunately. First game I played against an Epic Lich player, went down to time. Maybe if we hadn't gone to time, I might have been able to eke out a win at the end of it. I still had enough maybe left on the board where I'd finally attritioned out most of his stuff. But I got through his feet turn and everything, still had stuff left on the board, which is always a good thing against Epic Lich. And went to dice down, and he won on army points destroyed because of his feet turn. He managed to take 2 lights off the board, which put him up on army points. So
I got a question for you here. I know when we do our league nights, I've seen people, and myself I've been doing it as well, practicing with the timers. Do you think maybe we need to add in, for those who want to use the timers to do tournament practice, we need to add in a round time?
I think we do. Because the problem I keep running into here on Friday nights is I'd like to get in at least 2 games, but because people won't play on timers, or when they do, they don't play on a full game round timer.
Yeah.
It's very hard some nights to get 2 games in, which is unfortunate.
And it sucks when you're here, playing a game to practice or to have
Yeah.
fun. When all of a sudden you realize an hour and a half into the game, you say, "Oh, the game's over. Let's total up points."
Exactly.
And you don't get to play it to a conclusion. But I think that's an important part of the practice. I mean, if your list is going to win 100% of the time, but it takes you 2.5 hours to win the game,
It's not a good list.
you're not doing it in a tournament.
And that's important too, because more and more as we're seeing the meta skew, I think, to armor skews and stuff like that in these really grindy games, a lot of it's coming into trying to judge how long you've been playing in the current round, when the dice down's going to maybe be called, and trying to get as much stuff into like the zones, for example, if you're playing a zone-based scenario for tiebreakers and stuff like that. So anyways, I lost on dice down because of the feet turn that popped 2 lights, which put him up on points. Kicked me over into the losers bracket. Played 2 Legion players after that. The first one was a girl from Sarasota who plays with one of our old metamates here, Daniel, out there. She was playing Legion. She had 2 lists. I think one was Epic Veil, and I think the other one was Crazy Shooter Girl for them.
Epic Lilith.
Lilith, yeah. And unfortunately, her Lilith list just did not have enough heavies in it to compete against Runes of War. And she played like 2 games against Trolls, she said. So she was a good player. It's just I think she dropped the wrong list into mine and doesn't know what to expect. And
A lot of POW 10s and POW 12s don't do the damage they need to.
so that ended with and this is one of the few times in a tournament game where I almost feel like I was kind of being almost an ass about it. I hate to say. We were talking about this the other day because of the way points work in tournaments. Army points killed is actually part of a tiebreaker, and then so is objective points scored in a match if you have to go to ties on people with the same number of wins and losses. I literally tabled her and refused to kill her caster because I wanted the objective points and the army points. And I told her what I was doing when it got to that point, kind of where, it was kind of a foregone conclusion what was going to happen. But I think that's actually the first time I've ever felt bad winning a War Machine game, because I've actually experienced recently where I've been kicked out of the top 3 because of that very reason. Yep. So now I'm trying to be more careful about it as I'm playing games instead. So.
And you're still leaving yourself open. If you refuse to kill her caster, short of like surrounding it with guys that she can't hurt, which I've seen done before, it's kind of a jerk move, but you're still opening yourself up to the risk of a caster kill loss.
And she tried it. I mean, her last
You keep
activation, she had 2, Tariff, I think is what it's called, a Naga, and her caster left on the board, and she tried. It's just Doomshaper at that point so hard to get through, and Bolt Protective fitted over and blocked the line of sight anyway. So I took that game, played the third game against another Legion player. He's been playing for about 7-8 months now with his son. Got into it over Christmas time because it was a gift from his brother-in-law. Really good player, really good guy. Again, he just dropped the wrong Legion list into Runes of War. And when you don't bring enough heavies to attack my heavies as Legion, there's nothing you can really do about it. It kind of just stomps all over you. So I won those 2 games. Then my final pairing was against Adam Stewart, who got knocked out of the top seed spot by Chris Cuevas, who's one of the organizers for Crucible. Chris had some ridiculous 15-minute long game with him, literally, that they recorded, so it'll be posted soon, where he top of 2 assassinated him with Epic Morgul and the Mammoth, knocked Adam Stewart out of the top 3 or whatever. I think Adam was actually undefeated at that point, so probably the top 2. And so Adam had to play in the losers back and ended up playing against me. He dropped P Scar, I dropped P Grim, and it was another grind fest. We grounded all the way out to dice down. He won because on his last activation, he ran Scar up, put her on the flag, dominated for 2. I was walking over to start punching Scar in the face with my bomber. Dice go down. He's up 2 control points. I lose. So, but it was all in all, it was a good week. It tells me that trolls still have problems with cricks. I haven't found a good troll drop yet that I feel like is actually
anti-cricks.
Not necessarily anti-cricks, but it gives me at least a 50-50 chance to play the game.
But also, you have to remember that you're playing against Adam Stewart, who has been playing for
he's fantastic.
years.
I mean, we've seen him in the finals at Crucible.
You played one of the top players in Florida, and you went to dice so close to winning.
Oh yeah.
So it's not just.
I'm not disappointed at all.
You can't just get a list and say, "Oh, this list is going to beat this guy that's been playing for 20 years just because the list is good." That guy's good.
I just want to find a list that, if it can give me a 50-50, that means it comes down to player skill at that point. And I don't feel like I've found a list yet in Trolls, against Cricks specifically, that gives it to me where it becomes a player skill battle and a tactics or strategy battle versus your models are just flat out better than what I'm putting on the board. And once I can get to that point, I feel like it'll be a lot better. And so I'm still practicing. I'm getting Craig to bring his Cricks in. I hope maybe at some point you'll switch back over to Cricks. I mean, I like you playing Scorn too because I need to work against them too. But the best game I saw there the entire time was Fist of Alok versus Miserable Meat Mountain. Clint got paired up against a Fist of Alok player. And it was a grind fest in one center, forget what scenario it was, but a center circular zone. And it was just tons of boxed high armor models just sitting in that zone, wailing on each other. Nobody was advancing. Nobody was going anywhere. Tons of fire flying around from the incendiary. Mulg burned to death, which was very interesting. So
that would make my day if I had a game where I killed Mulg with fire.
Yes. Mullet Karn came in, left him on 1 box. Incendiary set him on fire. Clint was using the +1 strength in the Creel Stone instead of the no continuous effects. And rolls the fire check, fire doesn't go out. You know what I mean? Mulg's armor 19. Your dice off 7. You need an 8 hard roll on the dice to kill him, and I think he rolled like a 9. So
sometimes you got to roll the hard 6, which in that case was an 8. But
all in all, it was a good weekend. Signar ended up taking the entire thing
with Trenchers. I heard that's
he's been playing. I think it's the same list he played last year in up in Orlando when we went to Sci-Fi City. He was the guy running the double storm walls. Not double storm, but double Storm Striders.
Yeah, I love that list.
I believe it was the same guy. Yeah. I know he had the double Storm Strider list and stuff like that, and it was apparently doing work again. So
I read a bit, he posted an article about the tournament and his list as a whole, and basically his whole opinion is he's had so much criticism on what he plays and how he should just play other stuff that's better, and he just took first place at a highly competitive. Yeah, it's not a Masters level tournament, but it's feeding into a big tournament, and there were top quality players there. Play what works for you. I give that guy a huge amount of props for taking models that nobody plays or nobody wants to play.
People are not used to seeing those models. You could read a card stat pretty fast and say, "Oh, this is what this model do," but it's
things like Trenchers. Trenchers are fantastic, but they're just heavy on points. And Storm Striders, I don't know. It's just I think he just I don't know. I'm super pleased to see people winning with non-standard lists.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I would kill to have if I actually owned CGen and Matraxes and could win a tournament with them, I'd be happy as hell. But
Epic Xerxes, man,
I just won't do it.
So other than that, I played some Conquest up here the other day. Yesterday, I was playing with Tau with a bit of Space Marine splashed in, and then I played Chaos with some Dark Eldar, more than a little bit of Splash of Dark. It was almost probably 40-20 Chaos Dark Eldar. Really fun. I had a good time. Learned select some weird rules and interactions I wasn't sure about previously. I think I played against Rob, right. And I think I was only 1 game up on him by the time we finished. So,
and that's the thing. Rob is one of our local players, and there's just something about him that he sees the weird combinations that we saw when he just started into Call of Cthulhu too. Yes. It was like he saw these weird combinations and just made them work.
No, and he's a guy I think if he would dedicate himself, like playing hardcore, learning all the cards.
He'd be a
and
damn good player.
He would be a damn good player because he's a damn good deck builder.
And the rules too, like there
Yes,
are
the
rules.
rules.
There are rules, and that's one of those things that comes up is like, yeah, you kind of need to build up your all around skills, like knowing the rules. That's that's one of the things I focus on, just because if you don't know the rules and you get caught with a gotcha during a game, it's something that's very easily going to throw you on tilt, or is going to put you into a scenario where you thought something was going to work one way and it goes a different way, and it ends up totally
And the worst
screwing
thing
you.
to do is you want to lose is like, oh, I lost because this guy told me this is how the rule is, and I believed them. Went and looked for it, and it was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, that's
All I will say for the takeaway from that is Chaos and Dark Eldar is a really powerful combo, I feel like.
That's what I've been saying. That's what I'm doing first.
Imperial Army is ridiculous. They don't look as good when you see them in a vacuum.
Barrage.
When they have one card, which makes that faction stupid, and that's the Barrage of Fire. I'll tell you, when you walk into a fight and you go, I have this, like, there's no way I'm going to lose this fight, and you drop that event and go, yeah, so 4 of my guys now have ranged, and I'm going to give +2 to attack to 2 of them if you have the the right ones down, and then they just shoot all your stuff off the board before you ever get to make an attack.
that's
How you lose the game.
That's IG in the game.
That happened in our last game
Preemptive
when I was
bombardment.
playing Tau. We go to the final planet. If I had won the planet, or he had won the planet, it was going to be the game. So I had been stacking and stacking. Like, I knew I had this. Like, I was looking at the board state. I was like, there's no way I lose this matchup. I've so got this. We commit, and he goes, Barrage of Fire. And, oh, by the way, my dude over here, he's 17 strength right now for attack. Because he gets +2 to attack for every support you have in play, and Imperials have a ton of support.
And he's
One shot's
orc
my
support.
caster, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One shot's my caster off the or my warcaster, so he goes home, or warlord. He goes back, and so I'm like, okay, well, this is awful because you have how many more range attacks? 5? Oh, great! Literally wipes the board.
But
I mean,
as a miniature player, dude, it's not the feeling that you sit down in front of an IG player and all you see is guns pointing up.
Yeah.
You're like,
Like,
what's
just-
gonna happen? And
Say, oh, there's like forests and buildings between us, and you don't care about any of that.
yep.
Another good thing, I don't know, I was talking to Angela about it. Me and Angela have been playing the core set by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, after the third, fourth planet, the game's decided.
Yeah.
Every game I played with all the core set went to the last 2 planets.
Yeah. It's a
It
lot.
gets in a very grindy, which is very, very good.
Out of
You've
the
got much more fine-tuned decks at this point.
Well,
Exactly.
the problem was, I think, in a single core set, there's a massive faction imbalance. There are some factions that straight up, with the base core set, nothing else, just one core, are significantly overpowered compared to the other ones. But the moment when you start adding in 2 and 3 copies of some of those really, really good cards in those other sets, like Barrage of Fire, for example, all of a sudden those factions become really powerful really
and your
fast.
deck becomes more consistent because, again, you have 3 of instead of like
You have more
21,
dudes, so
31
you could lose dudes and still come back. You know.
You know, the weird thing is, too, is I was running at 60 cards yesterday, and I never felt like it was a problem. Whereas Rob, I think, was running at 50, and he was consistently having draw issues, where he was drawing handfuls of events instead of dudes, or he was drawing support instead of dudes. And there was 2 games I think we played at the end there where I think part of the reason why I won so single-handedly was he was just not getting cards into his hand that he could play on the board that made a difference. Whereas if I'm dropping 30 army guys in my deck and then the rest is all, kind of like Game of Thrones style building where then, you have support and events and locations and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. If I have to cut 10 cards, it'll be weird to kind of go through and maybe try and figure out what I would cut. But I mean, even at 60 cards, I never really felt like I was having any filtering or draw problems because there's so much draw in the game natively. So I think that we're going to wrap it up there. We're a little bit over time, but, that's not too bad. We're keeping it kind of around the hour time frame
we have
there.
lots to talk about this week.
Next week, hopefully, we're going to have Craig Russell on the cast. We were trying to get him in this week, and due to scheduling conflicts between all of us, we just couldn't really get him in to record. We're going to try and get him in next week to talk about tournament play and Crucible in general.
Maybe something
stuff
about
like that.
organization of tournaments as well.
Yeah, we really want to pick his brain about that kind of stuff because, they've been doing it for so many years now. It's been
And
great.
successfully, super successfully. That Crucible grows every year, like by
Exponentially.
leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And then next week is the release of Exigence for War Machine.
Yep.
So we'll probably dedicate a good chunk of the podcast next week too to talking about the new Exigence book and releases that are coming out for all the factions and stuff. There's been a lot of spoilers, but until you get the hard numbers out of the book, it's always
Officials,
you want to actually wait until you really talk about a lot of that stuff. So.
As always, Dogs of War Gaming on Facebook is a great place to get all of the information about our events coming up. as well as any exciting news
YouTube?
on the spot.
Yep.
Yep, Dogs War Gaming on YouTube. Where else are we?
We're on iTunes now, so you can actually pick up the cast on iTunes. We'll still push out the link like we were doing last time around for the first episode, but now you can subscribe on iTunes and just direct download it. It'll publish directly to your podcasting app of choice or whatever. So that's fantastic. And we may... I've been toying around with an idea of, kind of revamping the website for us to use in general, because I know you want to start doing some online sales maybe and stuff like that. So we're hopefully maybe we'll get the Dogs of War Gaming site a little bit more up-to-date and more interactive for people, so you can contact us through there. We can post the episodes there as well, so you can go to that source to get it from as well. So,
Okay, guys.
any final thoughts?
I think.
Have a good week.
Yeah.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Keep
Bye-bye.
playing.